So even though he never put hands on me, it was still super toxic and mentally abusive relationship. And eventually, the summer of 2018, I went home from Japan to Alaska for a visit. I ended up meeting up with an old friend of mine, and I used to date him in middle school, and we stayed in touch over the years. For 8 years, actually, we stayed in touch, and he actually tried to stop me from getting married. He tried to stop my wedding. Um, but I met up with him just once while I was here, and it was a little awkward. Like first time, reconnecting. We didn't have a lot of time. And while I was on leave in Alaska, I got the phone call that I had to move. Yeah, sorry, pregnancy brain. I had a PCS. I got orders to Mountain Home Air Force Base. I had no idea where that was. It's a small, small, small town in Idaho. So I had to fly back to Japan real fast because I was supposed to leave in 2 weeks, which is actually almost impossible to pack your house, clean your house, and out process in 2 weeks. It ended up taking me a month. And so the kids stayed in Alaska with my mom and at the time, Jamie, while I went home to Japan and out processed and everything. And then I moved to Idaho August 31st, so September. And the friends that I had met up with in Alaska at the time lived in Oregon. And so he's now my husband. And the first day I got to Idaho, I got a Jeep and I drove 8 hours to go see him in Oregon. And my aunt was there too, so I stayed at my aunt's house. And him, I, and another friend of ours, we hung out and went to the fair and stuff. And it was just like a really good time. It was like we had never disconnected. Or like we hadn't been apart for 8 years, I guess. We just connected like real good. It was like, yeah, I don't know how to explain it besides it was like no time had passed, I guess. We were just really close, and I think the biggest thing with him at that time was I trusted him, I guess. Like we were just super open and honest with each other, and we just had a lot of fun with each other. So I ended up staying the weekend at my aunt's house and spent like 2 days with him and his friends, and then went back to Idaho and did work and try to get stuff together there. And the next weekend I drove out to Oregon again, and my trips just started to become frequent, I guess. I eventually took the boys out there and had the boys meet him, and that went over really well too. He did really good with the boys, which is something I was really nervous about. And my divorce went through, which was great. He had been living in the same house as me. We weren't together, but he'd been staying in the same house as me, and it started to get really scary. He just kept asking if we could get back together, and I, of course, kept saying no. And it was hard because that's all I had ever known was him. But I knew that I didn't want to be in that relationship anymore. And if I got in that relationship, the circle would just keep going. And I just had to stop that. And I just had to stop that pattern of the getting together and then the breaking up, the getting together, the fighting. And the only way to stop it was to not get back together. He would lay like on the bedroom floor at 3 o'clock in the morning because he slept downstairs on the couch, and he'd come upstairs and he'd like lay down on the bedroom floor and just start crying and begging for me to take him back. And it was a lot. I ended up being late to work because of it, which is a huge no-no in the military. So it started to really affect my life, and I just could not wait for him to move out. Obviously he had nowhere to go. So we ended up getting him a ticket back to Tennessee, which is where he's from, and he moved back there and moved in with his mom. For 2 years, after that, he would still contact me, trying to get back with me, still contact me saying he was going to kill me. He threatened to kill the kids. He got banned from base because he sent messages saying he was on his way to Idaho to kill us and kidnap one of the kids or kill me and my now husband in front of them. Just all kinds of crazy things. It was super hectic and crazy. Anytime like he'd ask to get back together and I'd say no, then he'd come back at me with I was a slut and a bitch and the worst thing ever and how he was gonna kill us and just get super irate. And it was like a monthly thing, sometimes every 2 weeks. And like I said, this went on for 2 years. So even after I got married to my current husband, he was still doing this. In January of 2020, so like a year ago, I got out of the military, and my husband and I and our 2 boys, Colton and Ashton, we moved back home to Alaska, which is where Jamal and I are both from. It's where we met, where we dated in middle school, where our families are. So we moved back to Alaska, we got our own place here, and we started the paperwork for Jamal to adopt the boys. Jamie at that time hadn't seen the boys in over a year, hadn't spoken to them. He said they were sperm cells that could be replaced and all kinds of other crazy things. And we sent the papers to Jamie and he didn't appeal them. He said he wasn't going to appeal them or do anything with them. So the court date came and the adoption was granted, which was like just a huge relief that we wouldn't have to deal with him anymore, like at all. The contact was already very minimal, as was. He didn't call the boys on their birthdays, send them cards or anything. So it was already super minimal, but it was just a relief to know, like, we didn't have to try, I guess, to keep him in the loop just to get the hateful messages back and things like that. Trying to co-parent with him was very hard. It's something I wanted. I knew it was in the best interest of the kids to co-parent with him, that mine and his relationship shouldn't affect his and the kids', and he was just completely against co-parenting unless I was with him. So it was a huge relief that Jamal got to adopt them. Their last names were changed to Smith, so we all have the same last name now, and Ashton only knows Jamal as dad. He's been around since Ashton was a year old, had just turned a year old. So that's the only dad Ashton knows, and Colton's memory is very faint of Jamie, and he just knows, like, Jamal's his dad. So yeah, like, Jamal would take Colton to school and pick him up from school and do his homework and take him to his baseball practices. And even when we moved to Alaska, there was a period where I worked and Jamal stayed home, or other times Jamal works and I stay home. So he's just very active in their lives, like a father should be, and it's just pretty great for them. So I'm thankful and blessed that they have somebody like that in their life. But yeah, so for 2 years, Jamal and I tried for a baby. I have PCOS, polycystic syndrome, and it causes me to not ovulate all the time. I can go months without ovulating. I also have abnormal bleeding. I'll bleed for 3 months. I won't bleed for months. I'll bleed for 2 weeks just to turn around and stop for a few days to bleed again. It's just, I don't know how to explain it. It just sucks. And it's a roller coaster of emotions. It makes your hormones go crazy. So it really sucks. And I also have a problem carrying children. I've had 5 miscarriages, and my boys were born early. In those 2 years that my husband and I tried to have a child, we had 2 miscarriages. Our last one was August 23rd of 2019, and we didn't conceive again until August of 2020, so a whole year trying to conceive. We did go to a doctor's office and try to get help for about a year. We didn't get help until we ended up swapping doctors, and that doctor finally ran tests and did some, like, in pregnancy brain sucks. I forget everything. she did a test to check my ovaries and tubes, and everything there was good. And we ended up starting medication just to help me ovulate. We didn't want to do IUI or IVF or anything like that. And so I ended up finally ovulating, and we ended up getting pregnant. And I was like super, super excited. We were super excited. And it had just been like a long time waiting. And then I started to get really nervous because of the previous miscarriages and just could not wait for that first ultrasound. I had it early. I found out I was pregnant at 3 weeks, so super early. We found out the beginning of September that we were pregnant. I'm sorry. And we then finally had our first ultrasound. And that's when we found out we were expecting triplets, which was just insane, super insane. We saw the first little heartbeat and it was fluttering, and we were super excited and happy. And then we saw the second sac, but I didn't see anything in it, so I thought it was just a sac. But then the doctor moved over and she was like, then we go over here and here's a little flutter, and you could see the little heartbeat. And I just started crying and cussing instantly. I was like, oh my God. But I kind of suggested I was having twins anyways. So it wore off after a few minutes. And then she was like, and then we go over here. And she scooted over again. And there was another sack. And I was like, wait, you have to be kidding. You have to be joking. Like, we're on a TV show, right? And there was another little heartbeat. And my poor husband really almost passed out. Like, he could not. When the ultrasound was done, the doctor had to leave and give us a minute. And when she came back in, he tried to stand up to walk, and it was not happening. It just wasn't happening. We had to wait. And then when he started to walk, he almost passed out again. So it was definitely a whirlwind of emotions. We were wanting one baby and our last baby, being we have none together, and ended up with 3. But we're both super excited and can't wait for them to get here. It's definitely such a blessing. Triplets are super rare, and especially to conceive them naturally. It's definitely, you can't explain it besides anything besides a blessing from God. So we were just super blessed, I guess, is all you can say about it. But that's kind of, I guess, a backstory on me and how I got here, and backstory of my husband and how we got here and our children, and yeah, that's us.